How important is a client photo when posting a review? Live Q&A from the Law Firm Growth Summit Day 2 with Sam Mollaei, Seth Price, Mark Homer, and Neil Tyra, episode 69. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I am going to try something new, and that is to just use one of the questions we received on the Law Firm Growth Summit live Q&A panel. This was on day 2. We're just going to cut the audio clip of the question and the answers from the panelists and share it with you here. Now, I'm going to be doing a number of these. They're very helpful to people who might be having the same question. There's a lot to learn from what other people ask and from the answers that are being given. What I like about this is that the answers are coming from multiple directions. So the panelists on this Q&A that weighed in are Sam Mollaei, Seth Price, Mark Homer, and Neil Tyra. You may or may not know these names. Sam Mollaei was a guest on our podcast back in towards the end of 2019. Seth Price was a guest, a speaker at the Law Firm Growth Summit. He's built a firm to 40-plus employees. Mark Homer is the owner of GNGF, a marketing agency that services law firms, and Neil Tyra, the Law Entrepreneur podcast host, also an attorney, states and trust attorney in Maryland. So this is a great lineup, and the question that we're going to queue up for you talks about the need for a client photo when posting a review, because Sam Mollaei did a talk covered that. He mentioned that you want to make sure to get that from your client when you're asking for a review. So the conversation is all around that, answering that question, and goes to reviews in general. It was a great discussion. It's not that long, so stay tuned and you'll hear it shortly. The one thing I'm going to say is I'd like to start doing Q&A some more. Now, whether it's in a panelist form or it's just going to be me answering your question remains to be seen, but I would like to give you a place to go to ask the question. So if you want to record an audio clip for me, that would be great. I know that there's a tool I can use to set that up, but I don't have that set up yet. Right now, I'm just doing the quick and dirty version of this. So you definitely can record an audio clip on your phone and then email it, or you can type up your question and email it, but send an email to info@dreambuilderfinancial.com. And again, that email address will be in the show notes at profitwithlaw.com/069. But that's info@dreambuilderfinancial.com. Send an email there with your question, and hopefully we'll get to your question here on the show and make it an episode and give you some honorable mention there. So this particular question is asked by, I believe it's Melissa Pearce. I'm just checking. Yeah, so Melissa Pearce asked this question. So Melissa, thank you for participating, and you'll be honored to know that we chose your question here to drop into the Q&A. So without further ado, just want to share this with you, but please come back and let me know if you enjoyed this particular style of episode, whether we should continue doing it or cease and desist. And one last thing before I give you that Q&A, I'm not trying to stall here or anything, but I did want to shout out, we got another 5-star rating and review. This one from Olivia G. Lee. She wrote, inspiring and practical content. Not only does Moshe have amazing insights, but the guests he brings on also add amazing and valuable and actionable content, a must for law firm owners. Olivia, thank you so much for these beautiful words and sharing this rating and review. Folks, when people come to check the podcast out, they are going to look at the ratings and reviews to determine whether it's worth their time to listen to an episode. If you're getting value from this content, I'd appreciate it if you took a little bit of time out of your day to go and leave a rating and review. And they make it so easy these days to just press a button, follow some steps, to just type in what you want to write. So again, it would be greatly appreciated, and I will give you honorable mention here on the podcast. Just put that in there, and we'll read it out loud here on the show. So here you go. Here's that Q&A. Hope you enjoy it, and I will see you guys just in tomorrow for a great interview episode as well. Take care.
All right, so this question was after I watched Sam's presentation. You said that having a picture in the name on a landing page with reviews was very important. However, I do family law, specifically divorce work. And a lot of my clients, I have a hard time getting them to even leave online reviews, even with their first name, initial, or an anonymous. So do you have any research on how important it is to really have that picture up there, and not having it, would it negatively impact the conversion rates?
Any review is a good review. So even without a picture, it'll still be good. Just a picture just makes it just that much better. So don't overthink it. Just get a review. But just keep in mind, reviews is just one form of social proof. You could even take a video of you being at the court right after you win the case. If you can get the client, better. If not, just even by yourself, just showing your excitedness. Hey, I just got this from one of my clients. You don't have to say their name. You just have to say the results that you did, and just take a bunch of those videos, and those could be your video reviews. So I think that's really the way to get around that.
Okay. Does anybody else have input on this? Because it's not something that just Melissa is struggling with. I know with quite a few clients of mine, even a estate planning attorney who said that, just people they don't want everyone knowing that they used an estate planning attorney. So their people are just, when it comes to certain things, they just don't want to share what they've, what they've been through or put their name out there. So I see Seth has his hands raised. So Seth, let's go to you.
Sure. We struggle with this. I started my firm as a criminal defense firm, and while we have family and now, very often, as it was just said, any review is a good review. One of the trust points is numbers, particularly on Google My Business. And so getting the number up there, regardless of whether it's a picture reviews, and possibly a family member or a friend of that person to somehow leave the review for them. But I would say that the review itself is the first and primary concern, and the accoutrement, such as a photo, should be secondary.
Seth, I just want to go back up a step because your audio cut out quite a bit because of the internet. You said that the Google My Business, what's important there?
Well, just getting the number up. The number of reviews is so important. So regardless of photo, as a touch point, making sure the number is significant. Photos would be great, but I'll take any review we can get, and understanding that areas of law like family and or particularly criminal, it's that much harder, that you have to use any possible technique to get the review, forgetting about whether you get a photo or video.
Right. And okay, so for that, I'm just going to point everybody to a podcast episode, the Profit with Law podcast. We did an interview with Sam Mollaei, who's here, and he shared with us his process that he followed to get over 1,000 Google business reviews. He's now at, I believe, over 1,200. And he's got a 5-star rating. So obviously somebody who goes to check him out, they see that quantity of reviews and that level of stars. They know that he doesn't have that many friends boosting that number for him. So, there's a certain number that when you have that number, people are like, okay, who left a review for this person. But once you go beyond that number, now it's believable. So that's why I think that Seth's spot on there with the quantity of reviews being an important thing. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, so everything Seth said, completely agree. Just some examples, from clients. We've had clients tell us that once they really focused on getting reviews, and if it's just you, then it's a little extra work. If you can get if you have any other client-facing paralegals or anything that can help. The way that it works for a lot of people is they go about it by kind of reminding them that maybe the way they helped figure out how they would come find an attorney, or how they go about finding any kind of service professional, is looking at some reviews. And so it'd be really helpful if you could leave me a review, right? So kind of just telling them what the typical customer journey is, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm happy to help. But we've had clients literally tell us that somebody has hired them and said, you had 3 times more reviews than anybody else, and 100 people can't be wrong. Like over and over and over. So we will push and push and push on clients to get reviews. After about a year, maybe 18 months, they get to 50, 70, 100 reviews, and then they come back to us all the time and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So getting reviews is big. Where you can get them, Google My Business is the first place. I totally agree with that. Start there. If you see other places showing up with your name when you search your own name, then maybe a couple other places you can get them. But right now, Google My Business is a big dog. Totally agree.
I'm going to go over to Neil. Neil has something to add here.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect opportunity for automation as well. And one of the services that I use used to be called Get 5 Stars, and it's now called GatherUp.com. I think it's .com. Let me just double check here real quick. And what's really interesting about that, you can automate that using something like Zapier. Yes, GatherUp.com. Something like Zapier, so that I have it when the client, when we switch the tag on the client in our database to be complete, that triggers the transformation of the client's name and email address to GatherUp. And I have canned sequence of messages that then go out from there that solicit the review and the 5-star rating. And there's a sequence built in as well, so it has an automatic reminder if the client doesn't respond. I think it's a perfect way to automate that process. And on the front end, we pre-frame the client that they're going to get that, so that they know that they're going to be hit with that piece of information, and they choose to use it or not. I've had great success with GatherUp.
Okay, awesome. So we also put a link to the podcast interview with Sam into the chat, and I also want to remind the attendees that one of the bonuses in the All Access Pass was some video interviews from the podcast. Sam's is one of them, and when we went through the process, he actually showed his screen, and he showed us the software he's using to automate his follow-up with his clients to get those reviews. So if you want to be able to see it, make sure that you go in the All Access Pass area to the podcast interview section and find it over there, and you can watch it, and you can actually see him demonstrate the process in real time.
Well, should we just give him a straight to the point answer, how to get reviews?
You can, sure.
It's 2 parts. One is the actual what you say, the actual script, which I give in the podcast. And second part is using Mixmax to automate this sequence to ask it a very specific way. So yeah, those are the 2 ways. Script and then using Mixmax.
And I think the key is that he's using software to continue to follow up with somebody. And that's very effective with a lot of things that you do. I know that Sam used it to get onto my podcast and also to get me to then introduce him to other people. So I told him in my conversation with him, I can introduce you to X, Y, and Z. And then he just put it into this software, And I was getting these emails every few days. Hey, I just want to remind you that you said you would do this intro for me. He wasn't sending me those emails. He just did it, set it up once and said, okay, just keep reminding this guy until he gets his act together. So, pinged me 3 or 4 times. And then finally I was like, all right, I promised I would do this. I'll get around to it and do it now. So there's a lot of power in continuing the follow-up and doing it, frequently so that you stay top of mind until somebody actually does what they said they're going to do. One other thing that I think is really important is before you go to ask for a review, make sure that your client is happy. So start off with, hey, we're wrapping up the engagement. We're almost done. You're paying your final bill. How was the experience? Are you happy? Is there things that we could have done differently that we could improve and do better the next time? And get that feedback up front so that you could then follow up and say, okay, we've rectified it, or you said you were happy. So now, can you give me a review? If they've got a list a mile long of things they didn't like, don't ask them for a review. That's just like a hot tip right there. All right. Anybody else have anything to add? All right. Perfect. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.